Welcome to Blockchain Week, Day 4. My name's Amy Rose. We're going to be discussing now current trends in crypto with our keynote, our first keynote of the day, Michael Gronager from Chainalysis. Michael, please take the stage and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Amy. This is a great pleasure to be back in Australia. I haven't been there for a couple of years, and this time around it's virtual. I hope to be able to visit sometime in person during this year, as travel has not been that easy. So I've been in the crypto space for a long time. I've been sometimes I call myself a crypto boomer. I've been in crypto for more than 10 years, and in the early days, one of the things that really excited me about back then Bitcoin, but later all the multitude of different cryptocurrencies, is really that we are seeing a new mega trend. It's like a trend of the size of the internet. We see a lot of opportunities. Things will change in the world that we haven't even dreamt of today. And a few years from now, we will recognize some of the smaller things that we see today as being, oh, that became big. Do you remember that back in the beginning of 2022? That was so exciting, and I didn't ever expect that to happen. One of the things I'm super bullish on myself is that I think everything will get tokenized. We will see a lot of different liquidity being unlocked. Everything that today is seen as illiquid assets, like houses, cars, whatever, is basically going to become liquid. That also means that we have a completely new challenge, and that's always been my focus in working and starting and founding Chainalysis, has been the focus of like, how do we transition the world from being this institutional-based economy around various different institutions moving funds around. We have our various ways to transact. We have the different established way of building financial instruments, and into a world where this is more or less built on technology, where everyone have access to those types of finances, and also where it unlocks liquidity, as I mentioned, and gives a whole range of new possibilities. All of this means that we need to think about this new technology as basically operating everything as public companies. We need to have access to information. We need to understand what we are doing, and we need to have information symmetry, even in this world. So what we've been focusing on heavily in Chainalysis is really provide a lot of insights into what's going on in the industry, what things can you look at, and so on. That's also why the topic for the speech that I chose to present today is really about the trends in crypto. So let's dive to the first slide and look at some of the mega trends that we are seeing right here, right now. I would say we see clearly a lot of things changing. Over the last couple of years, we've seen the neobanks and fintechs adopting crypto with a lot of conviction. I've seen it from the US side of things with Robinhood, Square, PayPal entering the crypto space and enabling a lot of new demographies to suddenly have access and exposure to cryptocurrencies. We also seen institutional adoption. We've seen big companies allocating big fractions of their treasuries into crypto as a kind of hedge in the global market. We've also seen the emergence of decentralized finance, the ability to move between different assets relatively seamlessly, purely via technology, and at the same time enable people with a lot of liquidity in those assets to basically generate a yield from that. It's unique. It's been game changing. I've been tweeting about this as being a Nobel Prize worthy technologies. I think this is like really, really big innovations that we've seen there. Further on, we've seen that crypto is no longer just about finance. It's also about a multitude of other opportunities. We've seen gaming cards being traded in the millions in terms of small video clips from sports events. We've seen, and that's like micropayments or almost micropayments. It's at least like in $100 kind of range. We've seen the emergence of digital art as a real art form and something that you could actually start to trade and sell and give it a value with NFTs. And we've also seen several gaming platforms emerge that have built a bridge between building out entropy and value in a virtual world, and actually attaching that to value in a real world where you suddenly could trade and associate value with whatever you built and evolved and innovated in the virtual world as well. So really interesting movements there. One of the challenges in crypto from the very early days, and one of the things that I looked a lot on in the early days of crypto, was around how can we make all of this scale? And if you think again back on the background from the days of the internet, we had like big issues with scaling the backbone of the internet. How do we provide last mile access? You will never see videos on the internet because like the band will never accommodate that. And these things are being solved as we speak today. We see several layer 2 protocols. A lot of innovation is happening there, and the layer 2 protocols are basically enabling the scale and the growth of the blockchain and the crypto space in general, and that will enable a lot of new users to get access to that. But let's focus a little bit on Australia and some of the trends that's happening there. So I'd like to zoom in on the decentralized finance, and let's look at some of the trends specific to Australia. In Chainalysis, we launched a couple of years ago and continue to look at our different indices. We have one around what's the amount of criminal activity in the crypto space. We've seen that trending downwards and downwards as a percentage of activity. At the same time, we've seen the amount of activity in the crypto space just growing and growing. We also track what's happening around the globe in crypto. What are the countries where adoption is high? Where is adoption lacking, and so on. In one of those specific reports, we dived into DeFi and created a DeFi index. Where is adoption high here? Australia actually is on the first page on the crypto index, ranking as number 12. And one of the interesting things about our DeFi index is that this is not about two or three big whales that move funds into DeFi. This is actually tracking retail adoption. So we are tracking specifically smaller transactions in and out of liquidity pools, them being used for basically flipping assets from one to another. And we are tracking that specifically for the retail group. And on that one, Australia is ranking extremely high. So number 12. So huge shout out to everyone listening in from Australia today, and say like, you're doing a lot of interesting things in crypto. So clearly seeing you as a front runner on the adoption of DeFi here. Enabling that, and jumping to the next slide here, enabling that is a lot of the institutional adoption. I mentioned before, Robinhood, Square, PayPal, others enabling consumers in the US and Europe to basically get access to cryptocurrencies and use them for various purposes. Here in Australia, we've seen CBA, Commonwealth Banks of Australia, launching a collaboration with Gemini and Chainalysis around enabling their customers to buy and sell cryptocurrencies, mainly Bitcoin in this situation here, but clearly a big trend. This is probably the most foreseen, like most progressive move we've seen from many major bank worldwide. So again, a huge shout out for that piece of innovation, and seeing the need from customers to be able to trade in cryptocurrencies and use them for various purposes, even DeFi, as I mentioned before. There are other trends that I want to get into on the global scene. We have various trends on the macro level. I can't talk today about crypto without mentioning the crisis in Ukraine, and I'd like to dive into that in a few moments. Also, I'm going to dive into to public-private sector collaboration. But let's start in the basically the area of sanctions. So one of the things, and sanctions and like how crypto is being used in a world of crisis. I think the main focus for me, and what I really have been pleased to see, is that one of the things that we've always been cherishing crypto for, it's basically enabling transfer of money and transfer of value in a situation where it's really, really needed. and where it's really hard to collect funds in any other way. We've long time relied on the great institutions that have been built over the last 50 years, like United Nations and others, in collecting and helping nations in a dire situation. For the focus we have on Ukraine here, actually more money to date has been collected using cryptocurrencies than has been collected from throughout United Nations sources. So this is an example where technology have enabled a lot of help here. More than $50 million have been raised to date, and this is only counting the government solicited crypto donation addresses that we see here. Even more funds have been collected by individuals in Ukraine that distributed that for purchase of medicine, from purchase of water, food, and other things, and basically enabling the society to run, even if a lot of the infrastructure have been demolished and is under attack today. So again, a huge benefit that we see in crypto here. Another thing that's being discussed a lot in media today, we had a hearing where Chainalysis participated in the US Senate last week around sanctions and crypto. And let's look at sanctions. We have a history of sanctions already in the crypto space. And one of the concerns were that what if we sanction certain addresses? It's being identified that certain oligarchs are storing crypto at certain addresses. We're seeing payments to sources, fake donation addresses in Russia and other things. So there's been a lot of concern whether you can even stop anything or control anything in this wild world of cryptocurrencies. So let's take this example of Suez. It's a over-the-counter OTC exchange based out of Russia. They had laundered a lot of funds and been used to launder a lot of funds in illicit funds and was sanctioned back in September last year. And basically the day after the sanction went out, it got sent to all exchanges in the world, and immediately we saw that activity was frozen. So this is just an example that even though that crypto can seem very hard to control, and it's a perception, the public perception is that everyone can circumvent if they just use crypto. That is actually not the case. The second that a sanction is rolled out, it actually works pretty well in the crypto space as well, simply because of the global collaboration that's in place and the ability to freeze funds and understand what originates from illicit sources here. We also did another thing related to the campaign that we saw in what happened in Ukraine and in Russia. We felt that this was actually a good moment to launch a new product and launch that as a freemium model. We wanted to ensure that if any sanctions should emerge, that it was easily accessible to all platforms in the world and not just our own customers or existing customers today. So we launched a sanction monitoring tool that's free for the public. It exists in various crypto-friendly ways. It exists on multiple blockchains today, Ethereum and others, where we have a smart contract that lists all the sanctioned addresses on that specific blockchain. So it's very easy for smart contract authors and programmers to use that as part of the workflow for conducting their transactions, to actually enable sanction screening, even if you are working on chain. We also launched this as a public API and have seen like a very high number of subscriptions to that. We were actually quite pleased to see the big interest. Saw a lot of visits to our website on that specific webpage, and saw a lot of signups for this. Simply seeing that sanctions and that message has been heard, and also seeing that there's a lot of institutions that really wanted to adhere to the sanctions and be able to help and protect the world. All of this would not be possible without a strong collaboration between the public and the private sector. I think one of the things that's been core for me from the very beginning of starting Chainalysis has really been this public-private collaboration here. And oftentimes you can ask, but why? What is actually the purpose of doing so? And what is the purpose of really building this collaboration between the public and the private sector? If you look at the financial system today, there are a lot of very instrumental key stakeholders in the world of finance. Probably the most important stakeholders in finance today are the public sectors in the world. There are a lot of countries in the world. They control a huge amount of financial activity. They regulate the financial activity and so on. And it's important to ensure that that stakeholder is equipped to do and serve their citizens in the best possible way. Protect citizens, have consumer protection in place, ensure that if there's any abuse of the system, that it can be investigated and that it can be prosecuted. So working closely with the public sector is key. Also, at the same time, enabling this collaboration with the private sector. And one of the things that became clear in the early days of Chainalysis to me was that crypto imposed, I would say, or maybe more amplified, an existing problem for the existing institutions in the world. The world has gone global. It became increasingly more global with the emergence of the internet, and everything that happened in the world has been focused on globalization. With the emergence of cryptocurrencies, we also suddenly had a value transfer system that could easily be used for a lot of global activity. That also meant crime happening on a global scale and could feed into like crime networks worldwide. So it became crucial for the public sector to be able to work together worldwide in a global setting. So enabling the public sector to work together on a global scale was extremely important. But also, the public sector can't really do anything unless the private sector participates. We have like a lot of customers in the private sector space, and also with the sanctions screening tool, we see even more customers working with us that way. One of the strong, I would say, value proposition of Chainalysis has been that we bridge the gap between the private and public sector. A lot of collaborations between crypto exchanges, between other stakeholders in crypto and the public sector to help protect citizens, to help like do good for society, have actually been facilitated to what we are doing. So we see this as being a key part of building a new financial system and changing the world, is to work closely with the private and public sector and make those collaborate. So also shout out in this conference for everyone who's like on both sides of the public and private sector and are able to talk and meet. I know that not all of the conference is virtual. Jumping to the next slide, so the last slide. This for me, this is really important to ensure that what we are building here is really unique. We are building in the crypto space all together. We are building this new operating system for finance. And you want to ensure that this operating system for finance is about more opportunity, but also less risk at the same time. And often you would say that's not possible, but all is possible through innovation. You can do this and you can make it happen. So this is about trust and safety for all. It's about enabling everyone access to a new multitude of financial instruments. And we are seeing several trends, DeFi, we are seeing institutional adoption that basically shows us that we are on the right path towards that. And at the same time, we are seeing a world where the number and amount of criminal activity on the blockchain is diminishing by the year when we are tracking it. And we are seeing the adoption of crypto growing rapidly, also including Australia. That's one of the front runners. So I'll just want to wish you all a great conference and a great rest of the day, and use the coffee breaks to discuss how you can work together and make crypto accelerate it even further. Thanks for now.